It's 2 days since the suspected Boko Haram terrorists attacked Kuje Correctional Facility, releasing inmates as some of notorious Boko Haram members and their leaders are now on the loose. Today, the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, visited the site and they started querying a lot of inadequacies in the system and the mode of operations of the facility. Based on his assessment, the Senate President claims there is an obvious insider job. Take a listen to the Senate President.
Having gone around the facility itself, we are disappointed that this facility does not have CCTV, something that will record or at least give you a view of what is happening and sometimes record the events. Now, this is a medium security custodial center. How on earth in the FCT facility of this magnitude we don't have even CCTV? It means we can say that all other medium security custodial centers across the country do not have CCTV. So we have asked the CG, the Comptroller General, to ensure that the request for CCTV in all the maximum and medium custodial centers across the country are included in the 2023 budget, because this is essential, this is indispensable. Now, as this facility lacks the CCTV or a functional CCTV, there is no record of what happened, except narration and maybe thinking this is what might have happened and so on and so forth. But if we had CCTV, at least the records would have been there and some analysis would have been made.
That's the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan. Of course, beside him, you can see the Deputy Senate President. He does look at the National Assembly, very interested. We understand now the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, also visited earlier today. The President yesterday visited that same site, and he recorded or established his disappointment in the manner in which the custodial center is being operated. No CCTV, the defense mechanism broken down. These guys operated for several minutes unchallenged and all of that. How did all this happen? Now, beyond all of this, the broken down, this is not the first time, so we're not surprised that this kind of thing is happening. I probably was not surprised that this happened. It was just a matter of time that this could have happened. It has happened in Kogi. It has happened in Imo. It has happened in several other states of the Federation where correctional facilities were attacked in Nigeria. But the big question is the kind of people and the characters that were released by these prisoners. It was premeditated. They came for these guys and they released them. Who are these people? Let's say they are some of the leaders, the first generation of Boko Haram leaders were being released. What does this mean for us as a nation and our security architecture? I'm being joined by our security consultant, one that speaks to the heart of the matter. He joins us virtually, Mr. Kabiru Adamu. Thank you so much, Mr. Adamu, for joining us. Just a few days ago, you were here right with me in the studio. We never imagined that this kind of situation will happen. Now, Kuje is just about 30-minute drive or 25-minute drive from the city center. It shows you the closeness of these, the audacity of these guys to have operated in a correctional facility very close to town, perhaps about 30 minutes to the seat of power in the Aso Rock Villa. First and foremost, describe to us, what do you make of the audacity of these guys before I delve into some of the implications for our security?
Thank you, Cheryl, and my pleasure to be here. It shows an adversary that has been emboldened. It shows an adversary that has attempted in the past to attack, the other side, and that attempt has been successful. So that adversary is now moving further and taking what it believes it can take. In every war situation or any conflict situation, that is something to be extremely worried about, where the adversary has this confidence, this level of confidence. Then the best thing to do is to dent that confidence, and anything short of that, unfortunately, means a continuation of these types of incidents.
There was a time that Boko Haram element attacked the headquarters of the police here in Abuja. There was a time they attacked the United Nations. Now, there are advisory being given by foreign countries to their nationals in Nigeria. What is the implication of this kind of attack? And I'm not sure, you are within the security community, the intelligence community. Were you also privy to the intelligence that there might be this kind of attack? And in fact, parks in Abuja about a week or 2 weeks ago have been notified that they should close early. In fact, there were also notifications about the operations in some markets in Abuja. That means there was an intelligence. It might not be correct to say there were no intelligence. But the question is, what did we make of those intelligence?
So there are different types of intelligence. The most common one that people speak about is the actionable intelligence, the type that tells you what will happen, when it will happen, who is behind it, and all that. So we may not be privy to that kind of information, whether there was actionable intelligence. But I can tell you in all certainty that there was intelligence. As an example, the global body called IS launched a campaign in May 2022, where it called on its affiliates across the world to make effort to relieve their members in detention. And that was intelligence. Now, if we have an IS affiliate in Nigeria, what would happen is that affiliate would respond to that campaign. And that is exactly what happened. The second indication, Kuje as a town has had a history of attacks by especially bandits, criminals, who would go after residents and abduct them. In fact, last month and 2 months ago, residents in Kuje did protest what they perceived as the inability of the security forces to protect them. And you just need to speak to the traditional ruler in Kuje, he would corroborate this point I'm making. Now, not too long ago, about 2 weeks ago, that same community started reporting based on the charter that my company gathers, that they are seeing strange faces in addition to the bandits that they know around the mountain and forest areas in Kuje. Again, another indication. Then thirdly, after the train attack in Kaduna, one of the demands by this group is for the freeing of their membership that were in detention. Kuje came up in that conversation that possibly some of those members were in Kuje. So all of these were indications that Kuje as a custodial center may be in the eyesight of these attackers. And now, given the proximity of Kuje to this ungoverned space, there is a forest from Kuje that can take you all the way to Kogi, where we know that there are armed non-state actors in. Then there is also a forest that can take you all the way to Kaduna, as well as all the way to Niger, where we know that these groups operate. Now, what is the possibility that they moved in this route inside this forest to come to Kuje and carried out that attack? So there was intelligence. Whether it was actionable intelligence or just this type of intelligence that I described, there was intelligence.
Now, give us an understanding of what ISWAP and what we are hearing, that they've taken responsibility to that attack. And for the conversation we had on this program yesterday, there was a profiling of those who were released, some of those who make up the 64 or so members of Boko Haram who were being kept in that facility. We understand that some of them were the first generation of Boko Haram leaders, and in the generation of Muhammad Yusuf, the leader of Boko Haram. If that has happened, if ISWAP is taking responsibility for that attack, very much in the doorstep of the nation's capital and the president's office and living space, what does this mean? And what particular lesson do you think this is teaching us as a nation?
Now, I would be a little bit circumspect in responding to your question, and this is because it has grave implication on national security. So I would speak to the extent that I can without further adding to the very dire situation that we're in the moment. Now, let's start with the hope that all of these 60+ persons would have been interrogated, would have been debriefed by the various security departments in the country. And that means there is a dossier, there are files on them, and those files will contain the skill sets that they are capable of. Now, if we know the skill set, it means we can do a war room situation scenario where we now ask ourselves, with these skill sets now out there, what are the likely scenario A, scenario B, scenario C, and all that. And then more importantly, anticipate what would come out from that scenario, and then do what the logical national security measures would be, to put in place mitigation measures, anti-terrorism as well as counter-terrorism mitigation measures that would prevent the likelihood of all the scenarios becoming a reality. Again, I want to be very circumspect in respect to responding to your question. It's an issue of national security, and we have to be careful here.
So now, if the Senate president went to that facility today to inspect what happened, and he made a statement that came out to me, he said, it's obvious that it's an insider job. He was querying the absence of CCTV, the defenses of the facility and how it broke down, and the manner in which these guys operated. They have operated in that manner, and there are no very strong repelling of the attack, such that they carried out their enterprise unhindered, to the extent that they took away him. They let go the doors of this custodial center, and the fact that they were holding these very dangerous elements in this center for all this time. These are several questions, but what is very intriguing here and disturbing is the fact that he says it's an insider job.
Yes, so you could translate that to mean a lot of things. One of the most common knowledge that we all are aware of is that inmates are allowed to have access to telephones, and they're able to communicate with the outside world almost unhindered. Now that means, as an example, whoever would have given them those phones may have been a collaborator, knowingly or unknowingly. That is just one element of the possibility of it being an insider job. Another level of that statement by His Excellency, the Senate President, is the grievances that we know exist within personnel of the custodial center around salaries, around promotion, around their working conditions, that those grievances can easily be exploited by any adversary. And then the third element is contractors. Contractors who, for one reason or the other, because of the poor access control to that facility, may have gained knowledge that they shouldn't be available, they shouldn't be at their disposal, and they have now transferred that knowledge to a third party that would have transferred it to the adversary. So all these are levels and ramifications of an insider job, perhaps that the Senate President may have referred to.
Now, I'm worried. I may not be privy to some of the information that is existing within the intelligence community. But one we wonder that in the intelligence community, in fact, some of the very basic communication between citizens are being picked up if they are sensitive. If these elements have come on foot, that's what one of the things the Senate President highlighted, that they came on foot, and the number, there's several of them that came on foot. Now, how did they travel that distance without being noticed? They carried out these exercises for several hours, we understand. Now, the big question here is, now, after doing all of this, in Senate climes, health will be rolling right now. People's jobs will be lost because this is a disaster. And the president said he's expecting a report. In fact, some people have criticized the president's statement, saying he was disappointed. I mean, those who would criticize to say, is the president not aware that these things are porous to this point? Is the president just getting to know at this point? What is the Minister of Interior doing? What is the Minister of Defense? What's the Minister of Police? What are these guys in the top echelon of security? What are they doing? Some people probably would have lost their jobs. Some people would have resigned voluntarily because of this disaster that is on the nation's hands.
Yeah, so there are two ways to look at this. Number one, those organizations that you mentioned, the coordinating elements within the national security architecture, a lot of them were there, or even if they were not there in person, they had representatives when Mr. President made that statement. The administrative machinery within the presidency were there. So I would hope that they had picked that statement by Mr. President and translated it into either a query or what in intelligence parlance is called a tasking order, or even a military operational request, where they will now send either, call it a query, call it a tasking order, call it a military request to the various organizations that are within the national security architecture, saying that, look, this has happened, this is your mandate, this is your responsibility, we need you to explain within 48 hours why this incident happened. And the other ramification of it is to set up a commission of an inquiry or an investigative body to now look into the development, find out who was responsible, whose inaction, or perhaps whose collaboration led to the issues. Last time I was in your station, we talked about the role that the Ministry of Digital Economy, and I think I keep on forgetting the name of that ministry, the role it can play in security. Now, we're all aware that there are several masts around that facility. Communication happened. The good thing, again, I'm going to be very circumspect in what I say. The manner, the platform with which they communicated are platforms that could have been picked before the incident, and are platforms that can be investigated after the incident. So I'm hoping that this coordinating elements who we've talked about would pick up this, run an investigation. Now, in the meantime, one of the best actions that can happen is to suspend anyone who had responsibility and whose inaction and inability led to this incident, pending the outcome of the investigation or the query response by the several departments. Now, that is the only way to stop this impunity that has affected the security sector within the country. Again, it's not peculiar to the security sector. It's a common factor that runs across virtually all sectors of the Nigerian state. But it's really unfortunate that that same factor is also affecting the security sector. We need to stop it, and we need to stop it like yesterday.
Now, I mean, you share a lot of insights. You're a man of knowledge in this field, in this sector of security, and a lot of Nigerians respect what you say. I'm just hoping that this is just an aside, whether or not you share as much of this knowledge with the security community in Nigeria. Do you? Government and relevant agencies, do you? Do you share this kind of knowledge with and insight with them?
Sheung, gladly. You're aware, first off, I do run, I own an intelligence, commercial intelligence firm called Beacon Consulting. Now, just to give you an example, I talked earlier on about a campaign that the global body IS started. If you pick my report for me, it was mentioned, and that report I share free. It's a report that I spend a lot of resources in developing, but I share it freely to all the security departments. I don't know whether they bother to read. Occasionally, sometimes I get calls from them, but never formally. Now, again, on this platform, I believe a lot of security departments watch this platform. You invite me, you don't pay me. I spend my time, my resources, and of course, my knowledge I share. So I'm doing my part. The other side of it is, again, when issues come up that I believe are of relevance, we write briefs, and we send those briefs to the relevant security department. So that's the best we can do, just to inform, and if they use it, fine. If not, we've done our part.
On a final note, Mr. Adamu, I'm not in doubt, and no iota of doubt in my mind about the level and the amount of knowledge available, not to only Nigerians, to the government. And I sometimes feel that what exactly is happening to us? I mean, is this a curse or something? We are very intelligent and very knowledgeable Nigerians. In fact, in the military, in the police, in every sector of our society. And when people leave this society, they go elsewhere and they thrive and they do very well. And I'm not in doubt of the fact that there's a lot of knowledge that is being shared, that is known within the Nigerian sector. But there is a consistent and a constant failure to adopt those knowledge into practical gains for the Nigerian people. This is, in simple terms, policy and governance. There is a failure of that, and it's been several years of that. How do we fix this? Nigerians are disappointed. There is a lot of disbelief from the Nigerian people, a lot of disconnect from the people to the government. Security does now look like every citizen's business. It's supposed to be the primary role of government. Government looks that it has failed in its job. Where do we go from here, Mr. Adamu?
One word: accountability. If we can introduce accountability within the security sector, it will change all of this. And the best way to introduce accountability is to have what I would describe as monitoring and evaluation capacity within the security sector, so that we give key performance indicators. We appoint you as the Inspector General of Police. At the time we appointed you, kidnap for ransom in the country was the metrics she's showing about, let's say, 500 in a month. Now your key performance indicator will be reduce it to 100. And that means we should have a system for monitoring in a very transparent manner. And that is what I do in my consultancy. We have these metrics. These metrics would help us in reviewing progress. And for me, anything short of that, unfortunately, would allow a continuation of that. But if we introduce accountability through monitoring and evaluation, and this introduction of these key performance indicators, as well as the strengthening of the legislative oversight over this, most of these organizations are within the executive arm of government. And so their failures is also partly the failures of the coordinating elements within them. So the best way to kind of put an eye and ensure performance is to enhance legislative oversight. And the best way to enhance legislative oversight is to increase the capacity of all the committees within the National Assembly. Now, the challenge is that because of our military legacy, a lot of our legislators, unfortunately, are either uncomfortable or, for lack of a better word, hesitant to get themselves involved in proper legislative oversight over these organizations that are within the security sector. So they need to increase their capacity to understand the security sector and to hold them accountable in the everyday oversight. The second element is the legislation, and I must commend the Buhari administration in terms of improving legislation within the security sector, but they must take it further by implementing a security sector governance reform, so that we see an improvement, especially in the ethos of the functions of these organizations, where they see the average Nigerian as one that they should protect and not one that they should use their weapons against.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Kabiru Adamu, for your thoughts and the insight that you've shared tonight on the program. A lot of us who, if you are in your 40s or your 50s, you'll be wondering how this nation has deteriorated in terms of security this badly, and a lot of places in Nigeria are now very difficult to live in. Health, education sector also gasping for breath. Thank you so much for your insight tonight.